My sister mistakenly sent me a voice note intended for our mom. And what I heard about me compelled me to leave the next morning with a plan she never anticipated. Can you believe your own family could be plotting against you? Not just a little family drama, but a full-blown, calculated betrayal that shatters everything you thought you knew about the people you loved most. I'm Anitra, and a single, accidental voice memo from my sister ripped open my world, revealing a shocking truth that still sends shivers down my spine. What happened next? Well, let me tell you, it changed my life forever. At 28, I never imagined I'd be back in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by faded swim team trophies. Chicago, my interior design career, my stylish apartment, it all felt like a lifetime ago. Getting laid off from Hartman and Associates, a prestigious firm, after the luxury market crashed, it was brutal. One minute I was thriving, clients specifically requesting me, paying off loans, and the next, my boss, Graham, was praising my work while handing me a severance that barely covered 2 months' rent. After 26 rejected job applications and half my savings gone, calling my parents felt like admitting total defeat. They offered their Maryland home as a temporary refuge, a fun regrouping period while my sister, Jenna, and her perfect family visited from Boston. The 12-hour drive back felt like a reverse migration, each mile taking me further from the life I'd carefully built. Mom rushed out when I pulled into the driveway, her lavender perfume a familiar comfort. "Anitra, sweetie, you made it." Dad waved from the door as if I'd only been gone for a weekend. But then I saw Jenna in the foyer, her blonde hair impossibly perfect. "Well, look what the economy dragged in," she said, her laugh not quite reaching her eyes. "The prodigal designer returns." I forced a smile, but her words, even then, felt like a jab. Only my niece and nephew, Lillian and Mason, offered genuine, unbridled enthusiasm, lifting my spirits slightly. That first dinner, meant to be a reunion, quickly became the Jenna show. Mom cooked all my favorites, but the conversation revolved solely around Jenna's Boston real estate empire. "We just closed on a waterfront property last week," she announced, cutting her chicken with precision. $1.7 million. Tyler handled the negotiation brilliantly. Her husband, Tyler, puffed out his chest. "Just did what any good agent would do." Dad beamed. Not every agent could close a deal that size. I pushed my mashed potatoes around. "That's impressive. I actually saw some job postings at design firms here in town. Morgan & Wells is looking for someone with commercial experience, which I have from the Riverside Hotel project." A strange, almost alarmed expression flickered across Jenna's face, instantly masked by a bright smile. "Oh, but I thought you loved the Chicago design scene," she said. "Wouldn't taking a job here be settling?" Mom quickly interjected, "Well, I think it's smart to keep options open, but there's no rush, dear. You should take some time to decompress after your setback." The way she said setback made my layoff sound like a personal failing. I noticed the quick, knowing glance between Jenna and Mom. Growing up, for years apart, we were always opposites. Jenna, the practical, rule-following charmer. Me, the creative dreamer, questioning everything, rearranging my bedroom furniture for hours. When she was homecoming queen, I was at an art installation. Her straight A's overshadowed my A's in art and English, and my B's and C's in everything else. That night, unpacking in my childhood room, I found old sketchbooks. Designs from my teenage years that had formed the foundation of my portfolio. A pure joy before career pressure. A soft knock. Jenna stood there, 2 glasses of wine. "Peace offering," she said, extending one. "I know coming home isn't easy." For a moment, it felt like old times. "Your portfolio from Chicago?" she asked, gesturing. "Can I see what you've been working on?" I hesitated, then pulled it out. As I showed her my projects, explaining my concepts, I noticed something odd. Instead of polite disinterest, she was asking detailed questions, like she was taking mental notes. When I showed her a sustainable commercial space concept that had won an industry mention, she studied it with unusual intensity. "This is really good, Annie," she said, using my childhood nickname. "Really innovative." It was the first genuine compliment about my work in years. It warmed something in me. Maybe this time could heal old wounds. But as Jenna left, I overheard her on the phone in the hallway. Her voice low, clear. No, she just got here. Yes, but I don't think. Listen, I need to make sure this works out like we discussed. An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. Asterisk, what works out? What discussion? Asterisk, I told myself I was being paranoid, stressed. But as I drifted to sleep in my too small childhood bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that currents were moving beneath the surface. And I was about to be pulled under. 2 weeks into my stay, the awkwardness had morphed into an uncomfortable routine. Mom's breakfast questions about my job search felt less like concern and more like judgment. Dad retreated to his woodshop. Jenna worked remotely, her professional. Calls echoing through the house. The first truly bizarre moment came when I found Mom and Jenna huddled over coffee, whispering. They straightened abruptly when I walked in. Good morning, I said, reaching for a mug. What are you two whispering about? Just discussing Mason's birthday party plans, Mom said quickly, too quickly. His birthday is in November, I pointed out. Jenna laughed, a high, unnatural sound. We book venues months in advance. The good places fill up fast. I nodded, unconvinced, but let it go. Later, my old classmate Maya texted, heard you're back. My boss at Riverfront Designs is looking for someone with big city experience. Interested? My spirits soared. Riverfront was the prestigious firm in the area. Yes, I texted back before heading downstairs to share the news. I found Jenna and Mom in the living room, flipping through photo albums. Great news, I announced. Maya Winters just texted about a design position at Riverfront. I have an interview next week. Mom's expression was carefully neutral. That's nice, dear. But isn't Riverfront rather small compared to your Chicago firm? Actually, they've expanded a lot, I explained. They handle major projects up and down the coast. It could be a really good opportunity. Jenna's reaction was even stranger. Her smile looked plastered on, her eyes darting quickly to Mom. That's wonderful. Truly. Though, I thought you wanted a break before jumping back in. I never said that, I replied, confused. I've been applying to jobs since I arrived. Of course you have, Jenna said smoothly. I just want to make sure you're not settling for the first thing that comes along out of desperation. The words stung. My cheeks flushed. I'm not desperate. Riverfront is a legitimate opportunity. I'm sure it is, Jenna said, her tone suggesting the exact opposite. Well, good luck with it. I retreated upstairs, bothered by their lackluster response, trying to focus on preparing. As I updated my portfolio, Jenna's urgent, indistinct voice floated up. Curiosity getting the better of me, I crept to the stairwell. We need to make sure she doesn't get it, Jenna was saying. You know how she is when she gets fixated on something. My stomach dropped. Asterisk, was she talking about me? The job? Asterisk, I couldn't hear Mom's response, but Jenna continued, I know, but trust me, it's for the best. She'll thank us later. I backed away, my mind reeling. Was I misinterpreting? Could my own sister be sabotaging my job opportunity? It felt paranoid. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few days, I began noticing patterns. When I mentioned updating my portfolio website, our internet mysteriously slowed to a crawl. When I scheduled a practice interview with an old college friend via video call, Jenna suggested a family outing at the exact same time. When I highlighted specific projects for my interview, Jenna made subtly undermining comments about how regional clients might find those concepts too urban. The gaslighting reached its peak during family movie night. The main character lost her job and returned home. Remind you of anyone? Jenna said, nudging Mom, laughing. It's a common story arc, I replied evenly. Sure, but most people bounce back faster, Jenna continued. She seems a bit like you, living in a fantasy world about her talents. The room went silent. Even Tyler looked uncomfortable. Jenna, Dad said, a warning in his tone. What? I'm just saying, Anitra has always had big dreams. Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you have to face reality about where your skills actually are. My hands trembled. And what reality should I be facing exactly? I insisted. Jenna waved a dismissive hand. Don't be so sensitive. I was just making conversation. You know how Jenna jokes, Mom added, as if that explained everything. I stood up. I'm going to bed. Enjoy the movie. In my room, I paced. Was I overly sensitive, as they suggested? Or was something more calculated happening? That night, I made a decision that went against my trusting nature. I activated the voice memo app on my phone, setting it to record during family conversations. Not to be sneaky, I told myself, but as a sanity check. Little did I know it would reveal far more than I was prepared to discover. The morning of my interview dawned bright and clear. I'd prepared for days, feeling confident. This could be my fresh start. I woke early, applied makeup carefully, styled my hair professionally, and put on my lucky navy blue interview suit and my grandmother's silver bracelet. As I put on my earrings, my phone chimed. A voice memo from Jenna. I thought, finally, an olive branch. I tapped play, holding the phone to my ear. Mom, I need to talk to you about Anitra's interview today. Jenna's voice came through, clear, but with a tone I'd never heard before. Hard. Calculating. I froze, mascara wand halfway to my eye. This wasn't meant for me. She'd accidentally sent it to the wrong person. Stop listening, I thought. This is private, but then I heard my name again, and something in Jenna's tone made it impossible to turn off. I called Riverfront yesterday, Jenna continued. Spoke to someone in HR. I told them I was a former colleague from Chicago with concerns about her work ethic. Suggested they might want to verify her references more thoroughly. My hand began to shake. The mascara wand clattered to the counter. Mom, we can't let her get established here. You know what Dad said about possibly helping her start her own small design business if the job search doesn't pan out? Can you imagine? After I've worked so hard to be the successful one in the family. I could hear Mom's muffled response, not the exact words. Of course, I feel bad, Jenna replied, sounding anything but remorseful. But remember that business plan she created in her final year of design school, the one for the sustainable interior design consultancy? Well, I took that concept when she left it on her laptop during Christmas break. Those ideas became the foundation for the eco-friendly property division that made my real estate business stand out in Boston. My knees weakened. I sank onto the edge of my bed. The sustainable design concept. My passion project. I'd noticed similarities in Jenna's business, but dismissed it as coincidence. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. The truth is, Jenna's voice dropped lower. I've always been jealous of her talent. She makes everything look effortless. Do you know how hard I have to work for every client, every sale? She sketches something beautiful in minutes while I'm grinding away. It's not fair. There was a pause. Yes, I know she's struggling right now. That's why this is the perfect time to make sure she finds something more suitable. Something that won't put her in competition with me. Another pause. I was thinking we could introduce her to Rick, Tyler's friend from college. He's not particularly ambitious either. He wouldn't mind dating someone unsuccessful. The voice memo ended. For several minutes, I couldn't move. My body felt disconnected from my brain as the implications washed over me in nauseating waves. My own sister had actively sabotaged my career. My mother was complicit. They had discussed my failure as if it were a foregone conclusion, something to be managed rather than a temporary setback. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before I was sick. Splashing cold water on my face, I looked at my reflection. Shell-shocked. Pale. I played the message again, needing to confirm I hadn't imagined it. Each word cut deeper. The casual cruelty. The admission of theft. The ongoing conspiracy to keep me in my place. Worst of all, Mom hadn't defended me. She had participated. The two people I trusted most had been working against me, possibly for years. The interview was in 90 minutes. I had to pull myself together. Canceling wasn't an option. Not now that I knew what I was up against. With mechanical movements, I fixed my makeup, covering the evidence of tears and shock. I straightened my suit, put on my professional mask, and walked downstairs. Mom was in the kitchen. Jenna sat at the table, typing. Both looked up. You look nice, honey, Mom said. Big day today. Want some breakfast? Jenna asked, her smile not reaching her eyes. You need to keep your strength up. The normality was surreal. They had no idea. No thanks, I managed. I'll grab coffee on the way. Good luck today, Jenna called as I headed for the door. Though, you know what they say about luck. It's when preparation meets opportunity. Her words, once seemingly supportive, now rang with double meaning. I nodded without turning around, afraid my face would betray me. In my car, I placed my phone on the dashboard, pressing play one final time, listening to my sister's voice detail her betrayal as I drove toward an interview she'd already attempted to sabotage. By the time I pulled into Riverfront Design's parking lot, something had crystallized within me. Beyond the hurt and shock was a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I now understood the playing field and the players. The only question was what I would do with this knowledge. I nearly collided with a delivery truck. My hands shook on the steering wheel, and twice I had to pull over to collect myself. The voice memo played on repeat in my mind. Asterisk, I've always been jealous of her talent. We can't let her get established here. I called Riverfront yesterday. Asterisk somehow. I arrived at the sleek glass building. I sat in my car for several minutes, breathing deeply, reapplying lipstick. The woman who stared back at me looked composed, but her eyes held a new hardness. Maya was waiting in reception, her familiar face breaking into a smile. Anitra, so good to see you. Are you okay? You look a little pale. Just interview nerves, I lied. Thanks again for recommending me. Maya lowered her voice. Listen, something weird happened. Someone called yesterday asking about you, claiming to be a former colleague with concerns. Grayson, the creative director, mentioned it this morning. My stomach twisted. What did they say? Nothing specific, just that the firm should verify your credentials thoroughly. Grayson thought it was strange enough to mention it to me, since I recommended you. Corporate sabotage happens in this industry, but I never expected it for a position at our level. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. People can be surprisingly competitive. Well, it backfired completely. Grayson is now extra interested to meet you. Anyone who inspires preemptive sabotage must be worth talking to, he said. A small flame of hope kindled in my chest. Perhaps Jenna's plan would fail after all. The interview room was bright and airy, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Grayson Turner, tall with salt and pepper hair, stood to greet me. Anitra Taylor, a pleasure. Your work on the Riverside Hotel in Chicago caught my attention when Maya mentioned you. That ceiling installation was inspired. Professional pride straightened my spine. Thank you. That project had some unique challenges. For the next hour, I focused entirely on the interview, pushing thoughts of Jenna aside. I walked Grayson through my portfolio, discussed my approach to sustainable design, and answered his questions. Near the end, he leaned back. I should mention we received a strange call yesterday. Someone claiming to have concerns about your work. I rarely mention such things, but it was unusual enough that I'm curious about your reaction. I took a deep breath. I appreciate your transparency. Without knowing exactly what was said, it's hard to address specific concerns, but I can tell you my departure from Hartman and Associates was purely economic. They laid off their 5 most recently hired designers when they lost several major accounts. Grayson nodded. That tracks with what I've heard about market conditions. And frankly, your portfolio speaks for itself. He closed my presentation. Which brings me to the next step. We'd like to offer you a position as a senior designer. I blinked. Senior designer? Not junior or associate. Your Chicago experience puts you ahead of our current associates. The salary would be $85,000 annually with benefits and a quarterly project completion bonus structure. We'd need you to start in 2 weeks. Is that something you're interested in? The salary was $15,000 more than I'd made in Chicago. The position was a step up. And it was happening despite Jenna's attempt to sabotage me. Yes, I said, finding my voice. I'm definitely interested. Thank you for this opportunity. After finalizing details and signing preliminary paperwork, I walked to my car in a daze. The job offer should have been the highlight, the solution to my problems. Instead, it was overshadowed by the voice memo revelations. My phone rang. Jenna's name flashed. I let it go to voicemail, but she called again immediately. Taking a deep breath, I answered. Hey, how did the interview go? Her voice was bright with false enthusiasm. For a split second, I considered confronting her, unleashing all my hurt and anger. But something stopped me. A strategic voice whispered that knowledge was power. and right now I knew far more than she realized. It was fine, I said, keeping my tone neutral. They seemed interested. Well, don't get your hopes up too high. Regional firms can be very selective, but I'm sure something will work out eventually. Thanks for the encouragement, I replied, the words tasting bitter. Listen, I need to run some errands. See you at dinner. I ended the call and sat still, processing. I couldn't go back to that house tonight, not knowing what I knew. Not with the pretense of normalcy when everything had been revealed as a lie. Instead of driving home, I went to my bank. I withdrew most of my remaining savings, enough for temporary housing and to survive until my first paycheck. Next, I found a modest extended stay hotel and paid for a week in advance. In my hotel room that evening, I sat cross-legged on the bed with my laptop, trying to make sense of the day's revelations. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Mom and Jenna, asking where I was when I'd be home for dinner. I responded vaguely about meeting with former classmates and needing some time to process the interview. As night fell, I stared out at the lights of the small city I'd once been so eager to escape. Now it offered something unexpected, a fresh start, away from the toxic family dynamics I'd never fully recognized until today. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about reclaiming my narrative, my talent, my future. And as much as part of me wanted simple revenge, a wiser voice urged justice instead. Jenna had built her success partly on my stolen ideas. She'd actively worked to suppress my opportunities. My parents had enabled this dynamic our entire lives. I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing, organizing my thoughts into what wasn't a revenge plot, but a strategic retreat. A plan to establish boundaries, reclaim my professional identity, and perhaps most importantly, to ensure that Jenna finally faced the consequences of her actions. By midnight, I had mapped out my next steps. I would accept the riverfront position, but request a 2-week delay in starting. During that time, I would gather evidence, secure my position, and prepare for the confrontation that would inevitably come. For the first time since hearing the voice memo, I felt a sense of calm purpose. I wasn't running away. I was moving forward on my own terms. And Jenna had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I waited until Mom texted that they were all going shopping. I needed 30 minutes alone in the house. I drove to my childhood home, using my key to enter silently. The familiarity of the space felt different now, tainted by what I knew. Moving quickly, I packed essential clothing, my professional documents, and a few sentimental items. I left my furniture, books, most possessions behind. They were just things. What I needed now was freedom. As I finished packing, a thought occurred to me. Jenna had admitted to stealing my business plan years ago. Was it possible she had other evidence of her deception? Driven by this hunch, I quietly entered the guest room where she and Tyler were staying. I felt uncomfortable snooping, but reminded myself of what was at stake. After a careful search, I found a folder tucked in her briefcase labeled Green Home Initiative. Inside were printouts of my original sustainable design concepts from design school, complete with my handwritten notes. Some pages had Jenna's writing overlaid, adapting my ideas to real estate applications. Next to it was an email chain with Graham Hartman, my former boss in Chicago. The exchange was dated 2 weeks before my layoff. Asterisk Jenna, as requested, I've reviewed the situation. While Anitra's work is excellent, she would indeed be included in any reduction if we needed to cut staff. I appreciate the heads up about your family's concerns regarding her career trajectory. Sometimes these difficult moments become redirections to more suitable paths. I'll keep this conversation in confidence, of course. Asterisk my hands trembled as I took photos of the emails and the folder contents. The layoff that had devastated me, that I'd thought was purely economic, had been influenced by Jenna's interference. She had reached out to my boss under the guise of family concern to ensure I would be among those let go. The betrayal cut even deeper than I'd imagined. This wasn't just recent sabotage. This was years of calculated undermining, disguised as sisterly concern. I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. In the kitchen, I left a brief note, asterisk taking some personal time to think. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. Please respect my space. Anitra, Asterisk, no accusations, no revelations, just enough to buy me time while I implemented my plan. At the extended stay hotel, I transformed my room into a command center. Laptop set up, evidence organized. First, I formally accepted the riverfront position, but requested a start date in 2 weeks. I need to tie up some personal loose ends, I wrote. Grayson approved immediately. Next, I reached out to former colleagues in Chicago, carefully asking about the circumstances of the layoffs. 2 separate conversations confirmed that the layoff decisions had seemed oddly specific, targeting certain employees despite their performance records. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my family. Asterisk mom, where are you? We're worried sick. Asterisk asterisk dad, kiddo, call us. Your mother is upset. Asterisk asterisk Jenna, this is childish. Whatever is bothering you, we can talk about it. Asterisk I responded with minimal information. I'm safe and will be in touch soon. Please respect that I need a few days alone. Their responses were revealing. Mom quickly pivoted to guilt. After all we've done taking you in, this is how you thank us? Dad seemed genuinely concerned, but deferred to Mom and Jenna's interpretation. Jenna's messages became increasingly controlling, demanding to know where I was, when I would stop this ridiculous behavior. I maintained radio silence for 48 hours, continuing my research. I discovered Jenna's real estate business had heavily marketed its innovative eco-friendly approach, using language lifted directly from my business plan. She had won a regional business award for these initiatives, giving interviews about her original vision for sustainable housing. On the 3rd day, an unexpected stroke of luck. One of my first assigned clients at Riverfront was Meridian Development Group, the largest commercial developer in the region. Their CEO, Lawrence Carter, was interested in expanding into eco-friendly residential communities. During our first meeting, Lawrence mentioned he was actively looking for a real estate partner for a major new mixed-use development. We need someone with innovative approaches to sustainable housing, he explained. The traditional developers aren't forward-thinking enough. The opportunity was too perfect to ignore. Actually, I said carefully, I might know someone with expertise in that area. Let me make some inquiries. I didn't mention Jenna directly. I didn't need to. The seeds were planted. Back at the hotel, I began creating a presentation for Meridian that showcased my original sustainable design concepts, the very ones Jenna had stolen. I didn't reference her business or make accusations. I simply presented the work as it had originally been conceived, with my signature aesthetic and technical specifications. Meanwhile, my family's messages grew increasingly frantic. Mom left tearful voicemails. Dad called repeatedly. Jenna's messages oscillated between concern and irritation. This isn't like you, Annie, she texted. We're family. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was right. This wasn't like me. The old Anitra would have confronted them emotionally, been gaslit, and eventually doubted herself. That version of me was gone. During my research into Jenna's business, I discovered concerning patterns in her recent transactions. Several property listings had questionable disclosures regarding environmental assessments, precisely the area where she claimed expertise. In one case, she had apparently withheld information about soil testing results from potential buyers. It wasn't my goal to damage her career, but these findings suggested her ethical corner-cutting extended beyond family relationships. I made an anonymous report to the State Real Estate Commission, providing documentation without revealing my identity. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. As my second week away from home progressed, I focused on establishing myself at Riverfront. I visited the office daily, setting up my workspace, meeting colleagues, and diving into the Meridian project. Everyone welcomed me warmly. Grayson took me aside after a productive meeting. I don't know what that caller was trying to accomplish, but they did you a favor. Your work is exceptional, Anitra. We're lucky to have you. His words validated what I'd always known, but had allowed family dynamics to make me doubt. My confidence was returning. By the end of the 2 weeks, several things had fallen into place. My presentation for Meridian was complete and scheduled for Monday. My apartment search had yielded a small, charming place within walking distance of the office. And I had finally decided how to handle the inevitable confrontation. I called my mother on Friday evening, keeping my voice calm and controlled. "I'm ready to talk," I said. "Not at the house. I'd like all of you to meet me at my new office on Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. "Your new office?" Mom sounded confused. "What are you talking about, Anitra?" "We've been worried sick." "I'm sure she is," I replied evenly. "Monday at 3. I'll text you the address. Please make sure Dad and Jenna are there." "This isn't negotiable, Mom. Monday at 3 or we don't talk at all." After hanging up, I took a deep breath. The plan was in motion. In 3 days, everything would change. Not because I sought revenge, but because the truth needed to finally see the light of day. Monday morning arrived with a clarity of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I dressed carefully in a tailored charcoal suit with a deep emerald blouse. Power dressing wasn't just about looking professional, it was armor. My first official day at Riverfront Designs began with a warm team meeting. By 10 o'clock, I was settled at my new desk, preparing for my presentation to Meridian. Lawrence Carter arrived with his team at 11, impeccably dressed. As we shook hands, he smiled at my portfolio. "Grayson tells me you've prepared something special for us." "I believe I have," I replied, launching into my presentation. For the next hour, I walked Lawrence and his team through my vision for their eco-friendly residential community. The concepts were evolved versions of my original business plan, the very one Jenna had stolen. But my designs went further, incorporating everything I'd learned in Chicago and my ongoing research. "This is exceptional," Lawrence said when I finished. "It's exactly the fresh perspective we've been looking for. Most local firms are stuck in conventional thinking, but this..." He gestured to my renderings. "This is visionary." "Thank you," I said, maintaining composure. "There's one more thing I'd like to discuss. Meridian will need a real estate partner for marketing and selling these properties. Someone who understands the unique value proposition of sustainable homes." Lawrence nodded. "We've been interviewing firms, but haven't found the right fit. Do you have a recommendation?" "I might," I said. "If you're available at 3 this afternoon, I could make an introduction." Lawrence checked his calendar and agreed. As he and his team left, Grayson approached, impressed. "That was masterful. Lawrence rarely shows that much enthusiasm, and you've already lined up a real estate connection for them. That's initiative." I smiled, not correcting his assumption. I believe in comprehensive solutions. The hours until 3 o'clock passed in a blur of orientation tasks. I arranged the conference room, carefully setting up my laptop to display specific slides. At 2:45, a text from Mom, *, "We're parking now." "This building looks expensive." At 2:50, Lawrence returned, curious about the mysterious real estate contact. I asked him to wait in Grayson's office, explaining I needed a private conversation with the potential partners first. At precisely 3 o'clock, reception called to announce my family's arrival. I asked her to send them to conference room B, then took a deep breath and went to meet them. Mom entered first, her expression a mixture of worry and indignation. Dad followed, uncomfortable in his rarely worn suit. Jenna came last, her face carefully composed, but her eyes darting around, taking in the prestigious office surroundings. "Anitra," Mom began immediately. "What is going on? 2 weeks without a word, and now this mysterious meeting?" "We've been sick with worry. Please take a seat," I said, gesturing to the table. "I appreciate you coming." "Of course, we came," Jenna said, settling into a chair with practiced grace. "We're family. Though I must say, this dramatic disappearing act seems excessive, even for you. The subtle dig might have wounded me 2 weeks ago. Now it simply confirmed I was making the right decision. I wanted you to see my new workplace," I said calmly. "I've accepted a position as senior designer at Riverfront Designs. Today is my first official day." Mom's eyebrows shot up. "Senior designer? But you just interviewed, and you didn't tell us you got an offer." Dad leaned forward. "That's wonderful news, kiddo. Congratulations." Jenna's reaction was more measured, her smile not reaching her eyes. "How unexpected. I thought you were still considering options." "I was very clear about my priorities," I replied. "This position aligns perfectly with my experience and goals." "Well," Mom said, clearly flustered. This explains the absence, I suppose, though you could have simply told us instead of disappearing. Actually, my absence had another cause, I said, taking a seat across from them. 2 weeks ago, I received a voice memo from Jenna. A memo that was clearly intended for you, Mom, not for me. The color drained from Jenna's face. Her eyes widened. The realization. What voice memo? She whispered. Without responding, I tapped my phone and Jenna's voice filled the conference room. Mom, I need to talk to you about Anitra's interview today. I called Riverfront yesterday. As the recording played, I watched their reactions. Mom covered her mouth, eyes darting between me and Jenna. Dad's expression transformed from confusion to shock to anger. Jenna sat frozen, her carefully constructed facade crumbling with each damning word from her own mouth. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Dad was the first to speak. Is this true? He asked Jenna, his voice tight. Did you try to sabotage your sister's job opportunity? Jenna's composure fractured. You don't understand. It wasn't like that. I was just concerned that she was rushing into something out of desperation. And my business plan? I asked quietly. The one you stole in design school? Was that concerned too? I didn't steal it, she protested weakly. I was inspired by it. That's different. I opened my laptop, displaying the photos I'd taken of her folder with my original designs and her annotations. Inspiration doesn't usually involve direct copying or taking credit for someone else's original concepts. Mom attempted to salvage the situation. Girls, clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Jenna would never intentionally. Dad interrupted, his voice uncharacteristically firm. Just stop, Linda. You knew about this. You were part of that conversation in the recording. Mom fell silent, her face flushing. There's someone I'd like you to meet, I said, standing up. I went to the door and gestured for Lawrence to join us. As he entered, I made the introductions. Lawrence Carter, CEO of Meridian Development Group. Lawrence, this is my family. And this, I nodded toward Jenna, is Jenna Taylor Morrison, the real estate agent I mentioned. Recognition flickered in Jenna's eyes. Everyone knew Meridian Development Group. This was potentially the biggest client opportunity of her career, walking into the room at the exact moment her deception had been exposed. Ms. Morrison, Lawrence said, extending his hand. Anitra tells me you specialize in eco-friendly properties. That's precisely what we're looking for in our new development partner. Jenna glanced at me, confusion warring with opportunity. She shook his hand automatically. Yes, sustainable housing is my passion. Wonderful, Lawrence continued. Though I must say, the concepts your sister presented this morning were remarkably innovative. She mentioned they were evolved from initial work she did in design school. You must be proud to have such talent in the family. The implication was clear. Lawrence, intentionally or not, had just credited me with the original concepts Jenna had built her reputation on. Jenna's smile became strained. Anitra has always been creative, she managed. I turned to Lawrence. I should be transparent, Lawrence. I invited my family here today to address some concerning issues regarding those very concepts we discussed this morning. Lawrence looked between us, sensing the tension. Is there a problem I should be aware of? Before I could respond, Jenna stood abruptly. Excuse us, Mr. Carter. This is a family matter that requires private discussion. Of course, he said smoothly. Anitra, perhaps we should reschedule our follow-up. Actually, I replied, I think it's important you hear this. Jenna's eco-friendly real estate approach was built on concepts she took from my business plan in design school. Concepts I've evolved and presented to you today. The room went silent. Lawrence's expression remained carefully neutral, but his eyes sharpened with interest. I see, he said finally. Family business collaborations can be complicated. This wasn't a collaboration, Dad said, surprising everyone. According to that recording, Jenna took Anitra's work without permission and has been actively working to suppress her sister's career. As her father, I'm ashamed and appalled. Jenna turned to him, eyes wide. Dad, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, he interrupted. I've watched you two compete your entire lives, but I never imagined it had gone this far. Lawrence cleared his throat. Perhaps I should give your family some privacy. Before you go, I said, I want to be clear. that I didn't arrange this meeting for revenge or to damage anyone's reputation. The work I presented today stands on its own merits, regardless of its history. And Jenna, her business experience is valuable, regardless of how some of her concepts originated. Lawrence studied me for a moment, then nodded slightly, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. Integrity noted, Anitra. We'll be in touch about next steps. He shook my hand and left, closing the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, Jenna turned on me. How could you? Do you have any idea what this could do to my business? I didn't expose you, I said calmly. You exposed yourself when you recorded that voice memo. When you called my potential employer to sabotage me. When you stole my work years ago and built your reputation on it. I built my business through hard work, she snapped. Yes, I used some of your concepts, but I was the one who executed them. I was the one who took the risks. You were off playing designer in Chicago while I was building something real here. And that justified sabotaging my career? Calling my boss in Chicago, making sure I would be laid off. Mom gasped. Jenna, you didn't. Jenna's silence was confirmation enough. Dad stood up, pacing. All these years, we thought you two were just naturally competitive. We never imagined. He looked at Mom, and you knew about this? You helped her undermine your own daughter. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted what was best for both of them. Jenna seemed so threatened by Anitra's talent. I thought if Anitra found a different path, something less competitive with her sister, they could both be happy. So, you decided what my path should be, I said quietly. Without my input. Without respecting my choices or my abilities. The truth hung in the air. Decades of family dynamics exposed in their dysfunctional reality. What happens now? Jenna asked finally, her voice small. Are you going to report me to the real estate board? Tell all my clients. I shook my head. I'm not interested in destroying you, Jenna. I just want to live my life and pursue my career without interference. The anonymous report about your disclosure practices was made because clients deserve transparency, not to hurt you personally. Her head snapped up. That was you? The commission is investigating me because of you. The commission is investigating you because of your actions, I corrected. Just like your current situation is the result of your choices, not my response to them. I stood up, gathering my materials. I have work to finish today. I've booked an apartment starting next week. I'll come by the house tomorrow to collect the rest of my things. Anitra, Mom began, reaching for my hand. Please, can't we talk about this? We're family. I gently withdrew my hand. Yes, we are. And that's why this hurts so much. Family is supposed to support each other, not sabotage each other. I need time and space to figure out what kind of relationship I can have with you moving forward. As I walked them to the reception area, Dad hung back. I had no idea, he said, his voice rough. I'm so sorry, Anitra. I should have seen what was happening. It's not entirely your fault, I replied. They were careful to keep you in the dark. Still, he shook his head. I'm proud of you. Not just for this job, but for how you handled this. You could have sought revenge, but you chose a different path. His words were a balm to the still raw wound of betrayal. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. As they left, Jenna glanced back at me, her expression unreadable. For a brief moment, I thought I saw regret in her eyes. Then she turned away, following our parents out of the building that housed my new beginning. I returned to my desk, emotionally drained, but strangely peaceful. The confrontation I dreaded was over. The truth was out. What came next would be challenging. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was standing on solid ground, building my life on my own terms. 6 months after that pivotal confrontation, I stood at the windows of my office, watching autumn leaves dance. So much had changed. My promotion to design director came last week, following the unprecedented success of the Meridian Eco-Community project. My small, stylish apartment felt like home, reflecting my aesthetic, free from family expectations. The most profound changes, however, were internal. The journey from betrayal to rebuilding had transformed me in ways I never anticipated. In the immediate aftermath, I experienced a tsunami of emotions. Rage that left me screaming into pillows. Grief that ambushed me. Paralyzing anxiety about trusting anyone again. For 3 weeks, I threw myself into work, collapsing into exhausted sleep. It was Maya who finally intervened, showing up at my apartment with takeout. "You're not okay," she stated simply. "And pretending you are isn't helping." That night, I finally let myself break down, telling Maya everything. Her suggestion of therapy was gentle but firm. "Some betrayals are too big to process alone," she said. She was right. Dr. Winters, a therapist specializing in family trauma, helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was a systematic pattern of undermining and gaslighting that had shaped my self-perception for years. "Your success threatens the family narrative," she explained. "Your sister as the achiever, you as the dreamer. Your parents enabled this dynamic because it was comfortable, not because it was true or healthy." Gradually, I built a new support network. Colleagues became friends. I joined a local design association, connecting with other creative professionals. I started a side project renovating furniture for a women's shelter, finding healing in creating beautiful spaces for those rebuilding their lives. As for my family, those relationships evolved in unexpected ways. Dad was the first to reach out meaningfully, asking to meet for coffee a week after the confrontation. He came prepared with a letter detailing all the times he'd seen my talent shine, but had failed to advocate for me. "I thought staying neutral was the right thing," he explained, his voice breaking. "I never realized neutrality in the face of wrongdoing is just another form of harm." Our relationship slowly rebuilt on a foundation of honesty. He visits my office now, genuinely interested. When I restored an antique drafting table, he helped me reinforce the joints and refinish the wood, our hands working together like they had when I was a child. Mom was a more complicated story. Her initial reaction was defensive, insisting she'd only wanted to keep peace. Over time, and likely influenced by Dad, she began to recognize the damage her enabling had caused. Our conversations remain somewhat superficial, but at least they're no longer filled with subtle comparisons to Jenna or minimizations of my accomplishments. And Jenna? Jenna was the most surprising evolution of all. The Real Estate Commission investigation into her disclosure practices resulted in a 3-month license suspension and mandatory ethics training. Meridian Development Group ultimately chose another agency. The professional consequences she'd feared had indeed materialized, though not through any vindictive action on my part. I had expected anger, blame, perhaps even further sabotage. Instead, about 4 months after the confrontation, I received an email with an attached document. The subject line read, "What I should have said years ago." The attachment was a formal letter acknowledging that her eco-friendly real estate approach had been based on my original concepts. She had sent copies to the State Real Estate Board, the local business association, and several industry publications. At the end of the email was a personal note, *, "This doesn't fix what I did." Nothing could, but it's a start. "When you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen." *, it wasn't an explicit apology, but from Jenna, this public acknowledgement represented a seismic shift. I didn't respond immediately. 2 weeks later, we met at a neutral coffee shop. The conversation was awkward, halting. Jenna looked different, less perfectly put together, more authentically present. "Tyler left," she said abruptly. "Said he didn't know who I really was anymore. Took the kids to his parents for a while." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "Don't be," she shook her head. "It forced me to look at myself. Really look at what I'd become, at what I'd done to you." She met my eyes directly. "I was terrified of you, Anitra. Always have been. Your talent, your authenticity, everything seemed to come naturally to you." "Nothing came naturally," I corrected her. "I worked incredibly hard. You just never saw it because you were too busy trying to ensure I didn't outshine you." She nodded, accepting the harsh truth. "I know that now. I've been talking to someone too, a therapist. Trying to understand why I felt so threatened by your success that I actively tried to prevent it." We talked for nearly 3 hours, peeling back layers of our shared history. There were no magical reconciliations or tearful embraces, just two adults beginning the long, difficult process of rebuilding something that had been broken for as long as we could remember. Family therapy followed, with all four of us sitting uncomfortably in Dr. Winter's office, learning to communicate without the destructive patterns of the past. Progress was nonlinear, but slowly, we began to forge new relationships based on who we actually were. Today, as I prepared for a family dinner, our monthly attempt at rebuilding connections, I felt neither the dread of our early post-confrontation gatherings, nor the naive hope for perfect resolution. Instead, I carried a grounded acceptance of our flawed, complex reality and the ongoing work it required. The most profound lesson of these 6 months wasn't about family dynamics or professional validation, though those were significant. It was about the quiet power of standing in your truth without being consumed by bitterness or the desire for revenge. Justice didn't come from ensuring Jenna suffered consequences equal to the pain she'd caused me. It came from breaking free of the narrative that had constrained me, from reclaiming my talent and worth regardless of anyone else's attempts to diminish them. My phone chimed with a text from Dad. Asterisk on our way. Bringing that wine you liked last time, asterisk I smiled, gathering my keys and bag. The future remained uncertain, our family relationships a work in progress rather than a neatly resolved storyline. But I moved through the world differently now, confident in my boundaries, clear in my worth, free from the need for external validation. The voice memo that had shattered my world had also, paradoxically, been the catalyst for building a truer, stronger self. Not because betrayal makes you stronger, that's too simple a narrative, but because facing reality, however painful, opens possibilities that denial never could. If you've ever discovered someone close to you wasn't who you thought they were, or faced a betrayal that shook your world, I want to hear your story. What would you have done in my place? Tell me in the comments below, I really want to know what you think.